Police Constable Stephen Carroll was shot once in the back of the head while answering an emergency call. The breakaway Republican group, the Continuity IRA, said it was responsible for the attack. Tonight, the police have arrested 2 people. The killing comes just 48 hours after the murder of 2 soldiers. As our Ireland correspondent Mark Simpson reports, political divisions have been set aside as leaders united to condemn the killings.
These are dangerous days in Northern Ireland. And on the street where a policeman was killed last night, his colleagues spent the day trying to keep the peace. It's too late for Constable Stephen Carroll. He was a 48-year-old grandfather shot dead by a lone gunman. The killing came 2 days after 2 soldiers were murdered, and for the people here, brought back bad memories.
I feel like crying. I couldn't sleep last night thinking about it. Like, why all this again?
We don't want to go back to 30 or 40 years ago.
We all are here in life to help each other, not to murder or kill.
They'd need to get in and clear every place out that they can think of. Get them.
But last night, the gunman got away. Officers arrived on the street in Craigavon to investigate reports of a broken window. It seems the gunman was hiding nearby, waiting for them to arrive, and then opened fire. A dissident Republican group, the Continuity IRA, later said they were behind the attack. Like the killing of the soldiers at the weekend, this was another attempt to derail the peace process. But the process does continue, as emphasised today by unionists, the police and Republicans all standing together. It's an image that even a few years ago would have been unthinkable. And the Sinn Féin opposition to dissident Republicans has never been stronger than this.
They are traitors to the island of Ireland. They have betrayed the political desires, hopes and aspirations of all of the people who live in this island, and they don't deserve to be supported by anyone.
So who are the Republican dissidents, and what threat do they pose? They have their roots in the Provisional IRA, which was formed in 1969 as violence escalated. A splinter group, the Continuity IRA, was formed in 1986. It's known to be active in Craigavon, where last night's killing took place. The real IRA, which claimed responsibility for the weekend murder of 2 soldiers, split from the Provisionals after the 1997 ceasefire. Its members carried out the Omagh bombing, which killed 29 people. The Prime Minister insisted the dissidents would be defeated.
These are murderers who are trying to distort and disrupt and destroy a political process that is working for the people of Northern Ireland, and I know the response of the people of Northern Ireland. They want the peace and political process to move forward. They do not want to return to guns on the streets.
At the spot where the policeman was killed, officers remembered their dead colleague. We've blurred these pictures to protect their identities. This afternoon, 2 people were arrested in connection with the murder of the police officer. They are the first arrests since the upsurge in Republican violence began on Saturday evening. It's clear tonight the hunt for the killers is being stepped up. After 2 major gun attacks in 3 days in Northern Ireland, the authorities realised the need to act quickly. Mark Simpson, BBC News, Craigavon.
Constable Stephen Carroll was the first policeman to be killed in Northern Ireland for a decade. Our special correspondent Gavin Hewitt looks at why the police are now being targeted.
Policing has always been sensitive in Northern Ireland. Acceptance of the new police service has been one of the successes of the peace process, and that's why there's such determination to find those responsible for the recent killings.
We will solve these crimes, we will deliver justice, and we will allow the peace process to continue. I think it's worth reflecting that today all my officers are back out on the streets delivering community policing. I have no intention to ask the Army for routine military support. It's not necessary and it doesn't work.
Recently, recruits from both communities have been queuing to join the police service. Many people believe that by attacking the police, the Republican dissidents are hoping for a tough crackdown.
They want a police officer's death so that they can have draconian security measures and knee-jerk reactions across the political community, but they have not achieved that today.
To understand why policing is so pivotal, you have to step back in history. The old police force in Northern Ireland was called the RUC, the Royal Ulster Constabulary. Many nationalists or Catholics believed the police were pro-loyalist and prejudiced against them. During the Troubles, the IRA targeted them and 302 police officers were killed. But arising out of the peace process, a new police service was born. It had a new name, the Police Service of Northern Ireland. More Catholics or nationalists joined. And crucially for the Republicans, the service was now under the control of a local police board, which they sat on. In certain areas, police stations like this remain heavily fortified, but there's been real progress towards normal policing. And part of the key to that has been the support that Sinn Féin has given to the local police, as it did again after the shootings last night. Key to the survival of the peace process is that all politicians stay united behind a police under attack, and that has happened so far. One delicate issue is how robust should be the response. This is what the Police Federation, which represents ordinary officers, is looking for.
When I say special services, I'm talking about the use of undercover military personnel in order to gain vital intelligence which will lead to the apprehension of these thugs, these murderers who have carried out these dastardly deeds. And the point being, when they're arrested and brought to justice, they should be incarcerated and the key should be thrown away.
The police expect further attacks. The challenge for the authorities is how to go after these violent groups without alienating the Republican community through heavy-handed policing. Gavin Hewitt, BBC News, Belfast.
And we can talk to our Ireland correspondent Mark Simpson. Mark, in your report you mentioned those two arrests. Can you shed any more light on them?
Just the ages of the two males who've been arrested, a 37-year-old and a 17-year-old, both arrested this afternoon. There's quite a lot of security activity here in Craigavon tonight. If we move the camera around, you can maybe see the media there waiting for the police to come out of the premises here, which they went into shortly after 5 o'clock this evening. And I have to say, it is quite tense here in Craigavon tonight.
Mark, when the soldiers were killed, people might have thought it was a one-off incident. What might they be thinking now?
Well, I think for everyone, this is new territory in the new Northern Ireland. We saw one attack very quickly followed by another major attack. Now, that hasn't happened before, and it's led, as you heard in my report, a lot of people to fear the worst in Northern Ireland, that the country's sliding back to the bad old days. But I think those political signs of unity up at Stormont today are giving people hope tonight in what has been a pretty dark couple of days here in Northern Ireland.
All right, Mark, thank you. And you can get all the details of the history and legacy of the conflicts on our news website, and that's at bbc.co.uk/news. Friends of a Hunt supporter killed when he was hit by a gyrocopter blade say they complained they were being followed by a similar aircraft weeks before the incident. Trevor Morse died yesterday shortly after spending the afternoon with the Warwickshire Hunt. Let's join Fiona Trott now. Fiona.
George, this is Leamington Spa police station where the two men are still being held on suspicion of murder more than 24 hours after the incident at Long Marston Airfield. But it's not just the police that are investigating this. The Health and Safety Executive and the Air Accident Investigation Branch are also involved because as yet nobody knows if this was an accident or a crime.
The moments before Trevor Morse was killed are still a mystery. What is clear is that it was a tragic death. Investigators focused on this aircraft, a gyrocopter, which is similar to a small helicopter and privately owned. 24 hours after the incident, it was taken away. The Air Accident Investigation Branch want to examine it more thoroughly.
Trevor Morse came onto this airstrip and was hit by the gyrocopter's rear propeller. He was a keen supporter of the Warwickshire Hunt, which recently made a complaint to the Civil Aviation Authority because it had been followed by a light aircraft. And that could be why he came here yesterday. He saw a gyrocopter in the area and wanted to ask them what they were doing.
This is the Warwickshire Hunt that Trevor Morse followed with a passion. Today, the Hunt's master paid this tribute to him.
He was committed to hunting. It ran in his veins. It was a way of life. He was, first and foremost, though, a wonderful family man. He got a lovely partner. Wonderful. Was a wonderful son and brother to his family. And second to that was his hunting. Hunting he adored. He adored the countryside. He enjoyed everything about it, and he was completely dedicated to it.
Meanwhile, Trevor Morse's family say they're still trying to come to terms with this tragic loss.
Well, in the past few minutes, Warwickshire Police have released the details of the post-mortem examination which was carried out this afternoon. They say that Trevor Morse died from severe head injuries. George.
Fiona, thank you. Troops returning from a tour of duty in Iraq were subjected to a torrent of abuse from Islamist anti-war protesters today. The soldiers from the 2nd Battalion, the Royal Anglian Regiment, were taking part in a homecoming parade in Luton. Daniel Bircher reports.
A parade to mark their return from Iraq, the end of their 2nd tour of duty there in as many years. 200 soldiers from the 2nd Battalion, the Royal Anglian Regiment, marched through the centre of Luton, welcomed home by thousands, but also along the route of protest. Muslim demonstrators with placards and anti-war slogans. One chant, British soldiers go to hell. The parade continued, but after the soldiers had passed, there were more angry scenes as the demonstrators were shouted down. Many who'd come to welcome the regiment and support the parade felt the demonstration should not have been allowed.
Demonstration, disgusting, absolutely disgusting.
If they've got something to protest about, there's a time and a place for it. Get a petition, go to Downing Street. These guys are just doing a job for their country.
The demonstration was small. Those taking part were moved away by police.
You'll always get a small minority who will abuse any situation. They're not representative of the community at large. I don't think in the way that they do their business they're representative of the Muslim community either.
The Royal Anglian Regiment was given the freedom of the borough several years ago to recognise its service, and today they were doing their best not to let what happened overshadow the purpose of the parade.
Today isn't about politics, it's all about saying thank you to our local family and friends and showing that the Royal Anglian Regiment is part of the local community as their local infantry regiment.
But there is little doubt that the protest, though limited in size, has caused a great deal of resentment. Daniel Bircher, BBC News.
A suicide bomber has attacked a meeting of Iraqi army officers and tribal leaders to the west of Baghdad, killing at least 33 people. The bomber struck as they were leaving the town hall to tour a market in the suburb of Abu Ghraib. More than 45 people were injured. Scientists at a climate change summit in Copenhagen say the melting of polar ice sheets means that the sea level is rising much more than expected. If their new forecasts are proved right, it spells danger for the 10% of the world's population that lives in low-lying areas. Our environment correspondent David Shookman reports.
A storm surge batters the east coast of Scotland. This was just over a year ago. A train almost overwhelmed in Devon last year. So imagine the sea rising even higher than expected. That's what's now forecast. The reason? The polar ice sheets, like this one in Greenland, are breaking up faster than thought.
Connie. Hey, I'm David. David, good to meet you. Well, very nice to meet you.
A few years ago I visited a research camp on the ice, and the professor running it was Conrad Steffen. Today at a climate conference in Copenhagen, he unveiled the latest findings about the ice, and the sea level rise this century, he says, will be higher than predicted.
We know, and I would predict sea level rise by 2100 in the order of 1 meter. It could be 1.2, could be 0.9, but it is 1 meter or more, seeing the current change.
This was Lowestoft in East Anglia the year before last. What matters is the combination of rising seas and severe weather.
Back then, the waves were making it right up here. This seawall was only just good enough. So what do these climate forecasts mean? Well, 2 years ago, the scientists were saying there could be another 59 centimetres of sea level rise this century, taking the waters up this high. Now they're saying it could be 1 metre of sea level rise, that's this high. Others are saying it could be even higher, 1.5 metres. Think what that means for coastal communities.
For a tiny island nation like Tuvalu in the Pacific, a rise of 1 metre could be terminal. Already it floods with the highest tides, and around the world 600 million people are vulnerable as greenhouse gases accelerate the warming. Right now the sea is rising by 3 millimetres a year on average. Today's warning of far bigger rises is the most serious so far. David Shuckman, BBC News.
And the time is nearly 17 minutes past 6. Our top story tonight. A policeman is shot dead in Northern Ireland, the third member of the security forces to be killed in as many days. And coming up, combining Hollywood with motherhood by the film star Julia Roberts.
Later on BBC London, a budget cut for St Patrick's Day. Are the capital's multicultural festivals under threat? And
you clearly have me confused with someone else.
Clive Owen and his Pretty Woman team up again for their latest film. We're live at the premiere.
The father of Madeleine McCann today described how he and his wife Kate found themselves at the heart of an international media storm when their daughter disappeared. Jerry McCann told MPs the demands placed on his family by journalists were unbelievable. Also giving evidence to MPs was the motor racing boss Max Mosley over newspaper allegations about his private life and the need for a privacy law. Nick Hyam reports.
That's correct. The thing is that
two men, two very different stories, two equally outspoken attacks on Britain's news media. Jerry McCann and his wife Kate found themselves at the centre of a media maelstrom after their daughter Madeleine disappeared. Many of the stories about them were exaggerated or downright false. One newspaper group later paid them more than £500,000 in libel damages. Today, Jerry McCann told MPs he felt Madeleine had become a commodity and that at times it had been hard to draw a line between the search for his daughter and what he called the Kate and Jerry show. He accused newspapers of putting profits before facts.
The media, and particularly the press, became so obsessed with getting there first that Kate and I feel on a number of occasions Madeleine's safety was completely disregarded, and the way sightings and other information would have been followed up, and there was no consideration to Kate and I's feelings, hurt, or our wider family about anything that was printed. And so what we saw.
And when he called for improved reporting standards, at least one MP seemed to agree with him.
I think for me it's about responsibility and reporting truth and not making innuendo and speculation appear as fact.
I wondered how some of them can live with themselves.
Max Mosley won damages for invasion of privacy from the News of the World after it revealed he'd taken part in sadomasochistic sex sessions. He described the experience as like coming home to find your front door open and all your possessions stolen, only worse.
it's like taking all your goods, taking all your money. In fact, it's worse, because if somebody took your goods and your money, you've got some chance of replacing them. Even if you're not insured, you can work, you can do. Somebody takes away your dignity, if you like, for want of a better word, you never replace it. No matter how long I live, no matter what part of the world I go to, people will know about it.
Both Max Mosley and Jerry McCann want tougher laws, but there have been such calls before, and it's always proved difficult to frame a law which doesn't damage the legitimate freedom of the press. Nick Hyam, BBC News.
One of the highlights in the racing calendar began today with the start of the Cheltenham Festival. Over 200,000 people are expected to pack into the racecourse this week, but unlike other years, tickets are still available. Our sports editor, Mihir Bose, is there. Mihir.
Well, George, a great day's race here. But the big question coming into this festival is what would be the impact of the recession? All the signs are that the downturn will have a marginal impact, but the wider picture for British racing is far more bleak. The magic of Cheltenham never seems to dim, not even in this downturn. The crowds may be down a little. There may be fewer visitors from Ireland, but the spectacle is still one of the most compelling in sport. But this festival is an isolated case, and those who run racing know it faces huge problems.
A lot of the syndicates that were familiar names aren't there anymore. Will they come back? Who knows? Certainly not in the short term, and that clearly has a knock-on effect. Less horses for trainers to train, less staff needed, stable staff, stable asses. So the racing industry is having a tough time. They're not even in for many of these things.
The problems of racing go beyond the recession. At the Gallops at Newmarket, the heart of British racing, you get an idea of a sport that knows it's in turmoil. There are too many races, often at poorly attended racecourses. The traditional race-going public is ageing, and in particular, the unfocused flat season lacks a narrative to attract new punters.
although we have a great view of ourselves as a sport that finds change difficult, I think actually there is a mood for change, and I think over the next 1 to 2 years we'll see some major changes in the sport.
And if you can't convince sport to change, are you fearful it may die?
It's quite clear. The figures are telling us if we don't do something over the next 5 or 10 years, then our audience will fall off a cliff.
So lot 15, the Arakan coat.
Prospective buyers at a horse sale in Kempton. Like prize money, sales have been going down, falling by nearly a third last year. It might have been worse had Sheikh Maktoum of Dubai not been an active buyer.
We're dealing in a luxury item, and a luxury item is always hit by a downturn in the economy, and you'll find the bloodstock market over the years historically is always linked indelibly to the economy, because we're dealing with disposable income and a luxury item. So yes, we have been hit.
At 5 anywhere round the ring, anywhere now, he's got a 5 in now.
As horses struggle to find buyers, racing, a very traditional sport, is struggling to come to terms with change. It needs high-quality horses and high-profile racers that will attract and retain a devoted younger following.
Last time!
Close to the finish! Punjabi got Cheltenham off to a great start, the 22-1 outsider winning a close champion hurdle. This festival remains one of the few jewels in racing's crown. The challenge now is to use the recession to remodel the rest of the sport.
The bookies have had a great time here today, and they expect to take in £500 million. But British racing knows that will not obscure the wider issues that remain. George.
All right, Mihir, thank you. New figures show that industrial output in January fell more than twice as fast as expected. According to the Office for National Statistics, British manufacturing output dropped by 12.8% from a year earlier. That's the fastest annual contraction since January 1981. A woman who bit off her boyfriend's tongue during a birthday kiss has been found guilty of grievous bodily harm. Tracy Davies from Gateshead has been told she faces a jail sentence after severing the first third of Mark Coghill's tongue. Julia Roberts was Hollywood's biggest female star for more than a decade, with box office hits including Pretty Woman and Erin Brockovich. After a break in her movie career to have children, the Oscar-winning actress is back with her first leading role for 8 years in the film Duplicity. Our arts correspondent Razia Iqbal has been talking to her.
This is way over your head.
It's a role which Julia Roberts has monopolised and made her own in the past, the romantic comedy.
If I told you I loved you, would it make any difference?
If you told me, if I believed you.
Duplicity, though, is also a thriller, a corporate espionage caper in which the spies steal from companies and each other. Producers and filmmakers will be breathing a sigh of relief with Julia Roberts' return to a leading screen role. She represents unbridled female star power, something she is coy about.
If you pay too much attention to yourself, then you sort of are cultivating a sense of narcissism that I think in my business is too supported. And it wouldn't be tolerated in my household.
Anything you see here we can do, by the way. Get ready to have some fun, okay?
Pretty Woman was a turning point for Julia Roberts. Its huge box office success meant she was able to command earnings of more than £18 million and open movies on the strength of her name alone. Now the star is said to earn nearly £11 million a movie.
I need a favour.
This, though, pales in comparison to male earning power. More than £14 million is what Will Smith now regularly earns per movie.
This has been the eternal battle, isn't it? Equal rights, whether it be pay or just, our day-to-day rights at the workplace. But it's certainly better. Every little bit helps. Every little sort of accomplishment, I think, supports that.
No other actress on her own has matched Julia Roberts' string of successful movies. Such fame exacts a personal price in terms of media interest in her family.
There was a paparazzi who came onto my kids' school grounds, which I just thought, any other mother standing there seeing some man lurking in the bushes would strike terror in your heart in this day and age. And so I think it should just be something that that we all look out for each other and our little ones.
However much she craves it, Julia Roberts' public profile will continue to determine interest in her private life. Razia Iqbal, BBC News.
The Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton has received his MBE from the Queen. The 24-year-old said he felt humbled by the award and said the Queen had very closely followed the final laps of his championship-winning race in Brazil last year. The McLaren driver said today's meeting was one of the most overwhelming experiences of his life. All right, let's get the weather now with Louise. Hello.
Hi there, George. Well, I've actually got some crocus and daffodils starting to flower in my garden. And despite some spring warmth this week, we will actually have a touch of frost in one or two spots through the night tonight. Now, we've had some cloud and some showers across the country, but they're starting to fade away and slipping south, and that'll allow, with those clearer skies, temperatures to start to tumble. It will be a short-lived frost to the west as cloud and rain starts to pile in, but temperatures to the east perhaps just below freezing. Here we'll get some early morning sunshine. However, it won't last. More cloud starts to push in. This invasion of cloud and light, patchy nuisance rain arrives later on in the afternoon. Even when it clears in the southwest, we're going to have a lot of low cloud with that southwesterly wind and some mist and patchy fog as well. 12 degrees in the London area, though, and maybe some brightness, I think, into the afternoon. There'll be some bits and pieces of patchy rain across the Midlands and stretching up through the north of England as well. The northwest to rather low cloud, grey and dull and damp for a time. Eastern Scotland not too bad. Out to the west, though, we'll start to pick up some stronger winds and some heavier rain. Early indications of more wet, windy weather to arrive through the night. That'll start to move towards Northern Ireland as well, but generally speaking, Belfast not too bad at all with 12 or 13 degrees the expected high. There'll be bits and pieces of showery rain on and off through Wales for the afternoon, and that means for Cheltenham as well we could see a shower with a little bit of low cloud and drizzle likely to spoil proceedings on Thursday. I'm sure it won't do too much though. Similar story for Man United, low cloud and drizzle for their Champions League match. Arsenal are away in Rome and it looks as though here the weather behaving itself. Now we'll have a ribbon of rain stretching across Wales and the southeast. To the north of that, clearer skies here and still quite mild. So all in all, not too bad, I think, the weather over the next few days, George.
All right, Louise, thank you. A reminder of tonight's main news. The policeman shot dead in Northern Ireland has been named as Stephen Carroll. He was 48. Two people, a 17-year-old and a man aged 37, are tonight under arrest in connection with the shooting. And coming up on the BBC News Channel, all the day's entertainment, including: can the timeless Islands in the Stream top the charts again for comic relief? We'll hear from the man behind the original. And it's nearly 6:30. Stay with us. It's time to join the BBC's news teams where you are. Goodbye.
Tonight on BBC London News, Boris Johnson's foreign trip to promote London as a premier business city. The mayor acts to answer his critics. From trading room to classroom in just 6 months, new plans to attract city high flyers into teaching. How a moment with Her Majesty at Buckingham Palace phased the Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton.
This was definitely up there with the most nerve-wracking days for sure.
And the sound of a 100-foot drop. The world's steepest roller coaster opens in Surrey. Good evening and welcome to the programme. He's been criticised by some of Britain's largest businesses as failing to promote London enough during the economic crisis. But today, Mayor Boris Johnson took steps to silence his critics by selling the city as a premier place to do business. He's in Cannes to drum up investment at an international conference. It's his first promotional visit overseas, bar the Beijing Olympics. Our political editor Tim Donovan reports on the challenge facing Mayor Johnson.
Boris Johnson's been stung by recent criticism from big business that he hasn't been doing enough to promote London. Today he's come to the French Riviera to bang the drum for the capital at the world's biggest international property fair. Not quite as big as usual, mind. Fewer parties, fewer Russians and fewer investment bankers otherwise detained. If Ken Livingstone was sometimes accused of doing too much promotion, he's been accused by some of doing too little. But show him a bike and he's at home. These cyclists had pedalled from London for charity, and they aren't the only ones pleased to see the mayor here.
I think he's got a long way to go yet. I think he's seen as a very laid-back mayor, but I think he's got some strong policies to try and push forward yet to try and help rejuvenate the city, to bring some more energy back into it.
You might quite like to see a kind of acceleration of his efforts.
It's a bit slow so far.
Has he been promoting the capital well enough?
Well, he's certainly brought
visibility to the office. Not to say that Ken Livingstone wasn't a visible mayor, but a different kind of visibility, perhaps.
Here he saw the future that was, well, Croydon, and chose to announce today not new developments but a makeover of London's existing public spaces. And he welcomed word today that London's cost of living is falling steadily, now cheaper than New York.
I did consider not coming, but in the end you can't just run up the white flag and say that London isn't going to go out there and show its wares to the rest of the world. It's vitally important that we make our case as the greatest city on earth to come and live and invest.
Many major developments in London are currently stalled. Few developers are pushing new schemes, but some see that as an opportunity.
Prices have really come off the peak. They've probably dropped 20% or in some cases more. Rents, of course, are very reasonable. People that want to start up in business or branch out or extend actually really do have a very good opportunity at the moment.
It's a place where one call, one conversation over cocktails can seal a deal. And the mayor's doing plenty of both while he's here.
There's an old saying in our country, when the going gets tough, the tough get going to the south of France. And
the mayor is holding a private dinner tonight for a number of leading developers before making his main speech to the conference tomorrow on London 2012, hoping to inspire, persuade some of the key players here to invest. Tim Donovan, BBC London News.
The sound quality not as good as the weather there. Stay with us, plenty more ahead tonight, including we hear from the young carers that your money has helped as the countdown to comic relief begins. People who want to retrain as teachers could be fully qualified in just 6 months under new government proposals. The idea is to fast-track outstanding applicants. City workers top the list as potential targets because of the recession. Teaching unions have dismissed the plans as half-baked. James Westhead reports.
Are you yes or no? Yes. Are you taking me? Are you asking me for training?
As the high-pressure world of finance and business is squeezed by the recession, thousands of workers are thinking about a career change. Could this be what they're looking for?
Almost. Try again.
A new job as a teacher. The government thinks so, and now to lure the best candidates, it's cutting teacher training to just 6 months, half the usual length. A dangerous gimmick, say teaching unions.
People cannot learn to be teachers in 6 months. They need to have the time to reflect. They need to learn about the curriculum, they need to learn about children's development, and they need to just learn how to interact with children and young people. It's just nonsense to say they can do it in 6 months.
Ian Gordon-Brown was an investment banker for 14 years until he was made redundant last year. He was originally a trained teacher and has now returned to the profession, but says 6 months training isn't enough.
It's too short a time. As an example, you have to learn how classroom management, which is something you don't necessarily learn in everyday life. You have to learn how to discipline children in a way that is fair and just. You have to learn to be consistent, which you potentially don't have to be in the city because you're worrying about your own job as such.
There you go, sir. Seminar on teaching this afternoon.
Teacher recruitment is already underway in the city for the first time. Ministers argue cutting training time will be an incentive without harming quality.
We want the very best people who want to become teachers to get into a classroom as quickly as possible. Now, if you've got, a lifetime's experience, if you've got great skills, then actually that's perfectly possible.
But parents outside the school gate this morning had reservations.
Especially, when there's a class of 30 children, to have someone who's just going to be training for 6 months to be able to have that experience of, there's children learning different things and, coming from different backgrounds. So I don't think you can.
But it's better than people being unemployed, I suppose, and it's a profession, and people need teachers, so it can't be a bad thing as long as they know everything there is to know about teaching.
7 times 2.
Fast-track courses and a quick route to becoming head teacher are part of wider government reforms to improve public services. But the details are yet to be worked out, and the public sector yet to be convinced.
James Westhead with that report. A mother from Newham has been jailed for 8 years for child cruelty following the death of her 2-month-old baby. 27-year-old Claire Biggs crushed her son's chest and broke his wrist and shoulder. Biggs tried to blame her lover, Paul Husband, who's been convicted of neglect. There's been a big drop in the number of passengers using Britain's main airports, including Heathrow, Gatwick and Stansted during February. Around 1 million fewer passengers passed through the 7 airports run by BAA than in the same month last year. South West Trains has been accused of trying to conceal job cuts. The company has already announced 660 job losses, but the RMT union claims 100 more posts are threatened because some revenue protection staff are going to be replaced with cheaper workers. Around 200 people have protested against plans to build an eco-town in Surrey. The proposed site for the 2,000 new homes is in Dunsfold Park. Today, the developer made a last-ditch attempt to secure permission for the construction, despite huge opposition. Mark Ashdown has the story.
Making their feelings more than clear. Pretty much anyone who lives close to Dunsfold Park near Guildford is against plans for an eco-town. A public inquiry started this morning at Waverley Council, and locals are in no doubt it would destroy the area.
If you put 2,600 houses, there's no infrastructure, particularly the roads. There are already queues on all the local roads. We've calculated that there'll be a 6-kilometre queue going into Guildford in the morning, and the traffic will be back into Guildford in the evening.
This is the aerodrome it will be built on, best known as the home of the BBC's Top Gear. The 2,600 houses would be self-sufficient, exactly what the government's after. This development in Carshalton, known as the Bedzeds, what ministers see as the future. They're pushing for 10 eco-towns in the country by 2020. So why have Waverley turned this one down?
Eco-towns in principle are good, but I think that the underlying principle of an eco-town is it's where there's opportunities for people to move around without using their car. And the reality is that the scheme will be heavily reliant on the car. There are no railway stations nearby. Buses, I think, will always be fairly limited. So it doesn't meet the fundamental criteria of an ecotone.
Dunsfold Park Limited told us this will create a new green village which actively deals with water, energy, transport and waste in an environmentally friendly manner, while also providing affordable housing. They've now got 4 weeks to convince inspectors. It's likely to be a hard sell. Mark Ashdown, BBC London News, Godalming.
Now, it's one of the best-known events in the capital's calendar, but the St Patrick's Day Parade this coming weekend is facing big budget cuts. It's one of many cultural festivals that are mainly funded by the Mayor's office. So could festivals like Diwali and Chinese New Year face a similar fate? Here's Porrick O'Brien.
St Patrick, like the rest of us, is out of pocket this year. City Hall has cut its contribution to the festival by about a third, from 150,000 to about 100,000, although with a contingency fund. This woman is on the Mayor's St Patrick's Day organising committee. Do you think ethnic festivals are important to Boris Johnson?
I'm not sure. He's funding all the main ethnic festivals that were funded under Livingstone this year. Mostly, though, I think on reduced budgets. Certainly St Patrick's Day is, and we're very pleased about that they're going ahead. But we've had no guarantees for future years, not even for the 4 years he's there, and therefore it remains an open question whether they're really a very high priority.
In the past, Ken Livingstone pumped thousands into ethnic festivals. Let's look at the diary about 2 years ago. The Chinese New Year got £90,000 from City Hall. The Mela in May got £130,000. In October, Diwali got £45,000. Many Londoners, of course, will be happy to see a certain amount of belt tightening going on at City Hall. There was also a feeling over the years that Ken pumped lots of money into ethnic festivals to sort of pander to his political base. So is what's happening in terms of St Patrick's Day indicative of a change of mood at City Hall?
A lot of the events that have been running, existing events, will continue on Trafalgar Square, so Vaisakhi, Eid on the Square, those kinds of events.
With the same contribution from the GLA?
We'll be looking at the budgets for each event, and we're actually speaking to the organisers about ways that we can continue to support them around the same level or give them in-kind marketing sponsorship.
But that's a euphemism for a cut, isn't it?
Not necessarily. I mean, in some cases we're giving more money or we're supporting those organisations that will struggle. But what I can't do is say, right now, this is a blanket cut for everyone or a blanket rise, because it really depends on each event.
In terms of St Patrick's Day, the cutbacks will mainly affect satellite events, so there'll still be a big parade and a big music festival on Trafalgar Square at about noon. See you there. Porrick O'Brien, BBC London News.
9 people have been arrested over a multi-million-pound mortgage fraud. The City of London police made the arrests in North London and Sussex this morning. Well, Mike Ramsden's been following the story. And, Mike, what did this fraud involve?
Well, City of London police, who deal with economic crime, say it could have involved up to 500 mortgages across the southeast, tens of millions of pounds possibly defrauded. Centres on a company called Eastbourne Financial Services Limited, based in Bexhill, and police went in there today and removed documents as part of their investigation. And the police is saying that this fraud may have involved a collusion between the kind of people you'd usually trust when you were trying to buy a property.
Professionals play a key part in enabling the crime to be committed. So when I talk about professionals, it can be solicitors, surveyors, brokers, and even on occasions corrupt bank staff, corrupt bank officials, all of whom enable the fraud to be committed.
Who's the victim of this crime, Mike? The banks that lent the money or the people that took out the loans?
Police said very much it was the lender. They say it is a big financial organisation, but they won't say which one. But also there's the possibility here as well that some of the people who took out mortgages through this may have had their property overvalued. They may have not knowingly been involved in this at all. That's something they're investigating at the moment.
It affects the lenders mainly because they're not judging the lending decision on proper facts. So they're lending the money probably to the wrong people who can ill afford to actually keep up the payments on a mortgage, which is particularly true in this financial climate that we're in now.
So police asking anyone who's been involved in Eastbourne Financial Services Limited to complete a form, getting information from them on this on their website at City of London Police. 9 arrests at the moment, police saying more developments soon.
Mike, thanks very much. Coming up before 7. Is this your idea of fun? We check out the world's steepest roller coaster that's come to Surrey. Now it's Red Noses at the ready, as this Friday is Comic Relief Day. The charity has given £7.5 million to projects in and around London in the last 2 years. Well, all this week we're looking at how your money has helped. Tonight we visit Dagenham Young Carers, a scheme that offers children a chance to take time away from their caring responsibilities.
This is heavy to do. My name is Connor. I'm 10 years old and I like playing sports.
My name is Billy. My age is 9 and my favourite thing is football.
The biggest one's the best. We have another brother and his name's Alfie. He has problems with him, so like, if he was on his own, he might hurt himself. Whoa! Injure himself quite badly. Yeah. We have to make sure he don't fall down the stairs and and follow him. Not really stalking, but follow him around to make sure he's all right. Sometimes it makes me feel bad, always wanting to be away from him, but we get used to it, just so we have our time on our own, just doing what we like doing. If we didn't have our time on our own, it would be just we'd always just be looking after him, and we wouldn't be able to have a lot of fun.
I like going to carers because all of the activities.
I feel happy I got him as a brother, because if I didn't, we wouldn't be able to go to carers, and it'd just be me and Bill, and I'd prefer to have a brother like him.
Great stuff. And if you want to help raise money for projects like that, here's a suggestion of something you can do from a familiar face.
This Red Nose Day, join the Comic Relief Whoopee Cushion Orchestra at the big screen at Waltham Forest on Friday the 13th of March.
As he said, do come down on Friday and join in. More details about exactly what a whoopee cushion orchestra is and how you can take part on our website, with lots of other information about Comic Relief. And we just saw him, that boy from Hertfordshire who went on to conquer the sports world by becoming the youngest ever Formula One world champion. And today, 24-year-old Lewis Hamilton received an MBE from the Queen. He said he felt humbled by the award. Well, Catherine Carpenter is at Buckingham Palace, and a big day from the boy from Stevenage. Catherine.
Absolutely, what a year for him, Riz. First,
crowned Formula One champion and now made member of the British Empire. Today he swapped his racing jumpsuit and his crash helmet for a very smart grey suit and arrived here at the palace. The award was pinned onto his chest, and then he had that customary little chat with the Queen, and we understand that she asked him all about the type of F1 cars that he drives, and then she said that she'd actually seen that final breathtaking overtaking move on the very last bend in Brazil when Lewis Hamilton clinched the F1 championship. Who'd have thought the Queen was an F1 fan? Well, today Lewis Hamilton said despite all that's gone on this year, today was one of the most overwhelming experiences of his life, a day that had left him speechless.
This was definitely up there with the most nerve-wracking days for sure. I mean, I probably the one that was come anywhere near was probably meeting Mr. Mandela himself, maybe. But I think Her Majesty was just edged it a little bit, maybe.
Extraordinary to hear that from a man with nerves of steel on the racetrack. He was accompanied today by his father, Anthony, by his stepmother and by his brother. Unfortunately, his girlfriend, who's a member of the pop band The Pussycat Dolls, couldn't be with him. She's on tour, but Lewis said she would have been here if she could. He now, though, has to put all things royal, all things to do with the palace behind him. He's straight back into training. His first race of the new season is in Australia at the end of this month, and he says he knows he's got a very tough time ahead of him with all the changes to F1 this year, but he's hoping that he can retain his title. Back to you.
Nice to know that he's got an F1 fan in the Queen, though. Catherine, thank you very much indeed. Now, how do you fancy this? It's the world's steepest freefall drop, and certainly not for the faint-hearted, as it's a 100-foot drop. Well, the roller coaster opens this weekend at Thorpe Park in Surrey. We sent Louisa Preston to take a look.
I'm not the biggest fan of roller coasters at the best of times, so this was one assignment I definitely wasn't looking forward to. Climbing slowly into the sky before plummeting 100 feet, the steepest freefall ride in the world. When you're standing next to this roller coaster, it really looks terrifying. But I've got to give it a go. I can't quite believe I'm doing this. Guys, you've just done it. What was it like?
Amazing, terrifying, but it was
really
brilliant.
fun.
When you get to the top and you're going down so fast and you see the blades, it's just pure adrenaline. Straight down.
Oh God, it's quite stiff, isn't it? Right, let's go. Let's go before I change my mind. As well as coping with the steepest free fall in the world, I was preparing to experience extreme G-force. I can't believe I have just done that. It was so scary. I spent most of the ride with my eyes shut, but I've done it. I'm proud of myself, but I will never do it again. So it was quite a thrill, but will the £13.5 million attraction pay off?
It is a lot of money to invest in a coaster, but we believe what we're going to produce is going to be worth it at the end, with the most terrifying coaster in the world.
There's no question it's not for the faint-hearted, but some think roller coasters could be bad for your health.
What we'd like to see is further research carried out into the long-term effects of using rides like this, because a lot of the times cumulative damage can be the cause of a brain injury, not just the initial one-off impact.
Well, if that doesn't put you off and you fancy a real thrill, the ride opens at the weekend. Louisa Preston, BBC London News.
She's a brave girl. Now, Leicester Square is buzzing tonight as the red carpet welcomes two Hollywood A-listers. Clive Owen and Julia Roberts are in London for the film premiere of Duplicity, Julia's first lead role since becoming a mother of three. Well, our entertainment correspondent Brenda Manis is there on the red carpet. Brenda.
Yes. I'm here now. You can hear them all chanting her name, and yes, she's joined me now. I am here live with Julia Roberts. Julia, welcome to London. I gather you only got in last night.
I did, yes.
Yes. Now this film, it really is like a reunion of old buddies. You worked together in 2004 on Closure. Did that make it easier to give us the chemistry that we see?
It absolutely made it easier for me. I adore Clive. I find him so fun and fabulous to work with, and we just had a super time.
Is it true he was suggested for the part by George Clooney?
Yes, that is true. I do believe. Well, George introduced Clive and Tony to each other, and then Clive called me and asked me to join in, so...
Money.
Keep going.
How much do you think we'd need?
20 million?
I was thinking 40.
I do apologise about that. We did want to hear more from Julia Roberts there. We'll see if we can connect you in a moment. To football now, and I think we might be able to go back to Julia Roberts. Let's see if we can.
Easier because we're in New York, so the kids can still kind of have their regular day-to-day life. This would be a whole transplant, so...
Well, enjoy your evening. I know they're screaming for you now. Enjoy it. Okay, you take care, Julia. Well, it was lovely to see. It was a meeting of the minds with her and Clive. She plays an MI5 Clive plays an MI5 agent and she plays a CIA agent. They fall in love and yet there's a corporate war. But it is a great film, keeps you on your toes, and it was great to see her live actually. First time in London for ages. Back to you.
Thanks very much. Very excited Brenda O'Manus there. Sorry about the drop-in sound there. Well, to football now. Chelsea hope to secure a place in the Champions League quarter-finals tonight. They're away to Juventus in the second leg of their knockout round tie. The Blues lead 1-0 after the first leg at Stamford Bridge a fortnight ago.
Whenever we can, and it's also in the character of this team, they must and they like to attack. So we're not just come here to defend, because then you're asking for a lot of problems.
And you can hear full live commentary of that match from Turin on BBC London 94.9, as well as on our digital station and, of course, on the BBC London website. Kick-off is at 7:45. Meanwhile, Arsenal have warned fans travelling to Italy for tomorrow's Champions League match against Roma. They may be at risk if they travel to the stadium alone. Supporters have also been told to stay away from areas of the city where 7 Manchester United fans were hurt in clashes 2 years ago. Great Britain will have a football team to take part in the 2012 Olympics, even if it consists entirely of English players. The issue has become controversial since the Scottish, Welsh and Irish football associations raised concern that a joint squad could affect the future of national sides. Sports Minister Jerry Sutcliffe said he wants the widest representation from the UK, but it's possible only the English Association will be willing to take part. OK, let's go over to Peter for the weather now. And Chelsea and Arsenal fans look as if they'll get good weather in Italy. Pete?
It's not too bad in Italy at the moment. Some warm spring sunshine, temperatures in the teens, and we're going to have that sort of weather for the end of the week. A bit chilly here this evening, a bit chilly in Turin this evening as well, underneath clear skies. And as you just mentioned, you can listen to commentary on that match on radio and online. But here in London this evening, the skies are clearing, the wind is falling light, and it's starting to feel cold. It's going to get even colder overnight tonight underneath those clear skies. Eventually the breeze will disappear altogether. Keep an eye on the colour of the land, because you'll be able to see that blue tinge appearing from the suburbs out of the countryside. So it looks as though some of us, well, quite a few of us, will find a touch of frost on the ground by the end of the night, and perhaps a few rural fog patches as well. Tomorrow then, a chilly start but a bright start to the day. As the southwesterly breeze picks up in strength, it will blow any fog away. It's going to blow a lot of cloud across us tomorrow. Despite that, I think we're going to see temperatures getting up into double figures, 10, 11, 12 Celsius, with a bit of rain turning up during the afternoon. Still some more of that around in the evening. On Thursday, we're going to have a weak weather front right over the top of us, so it looks as though there'll be a cloudy day with outbreaks of rain. And then on Friday, as that weather front gets even weaker and starts to move away, well, the skies should brighten up, some sunshine breaking through, and temperatures, well, up to around something like 13 Celsius. So the outlook is for a little bit more spring rain before we eventually get some warm spring sunshine at the end of the week, Riz.
I look forward to Friday. Peter, thank you. Tonight's main news now. A dissident Republican group, the Continuity IRA, has said it had shot dead a police officer in Northern Ireland last night. 48-year-old Constable Stephen Carroll was killed in County Armagh while responding to a call from a woman for help. Police are continuing to question two men about the death of a Hunt supporter who was hit by a gyrocopter in Warwickshire. Trevor Morse died at Longmarston Airfield as he followed a hunt yesterday afternoon. Politicians have condemned an anti-war protest which marred a parade in Luton for soldiers returning from Iraq. 2 people were arrested after trouble broke out when a number of people staged a counter-demonstration. Boris Johnson has travelled to Cannes to promote London at an international conference. The mayor was criticised last week for failing to do enough to market the capital during the recession. And around 200 people have protested against plans to build an eco-town in Surrey. A developer wants permission to build 2,000 new homes on the aerodrome at Dunsfold Park. And that's all we've got time for tonight. Plenty more, though, on our website, that address, bbc.co.uk/London, and we'll be back at 10. For now, from all of us on the team, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.
Music legend Annie Lennox is on The One Show, next on BBC One.
DS Croft DC Doyle, Missing Persons Unit.
Something's happened to my fiancé. I don't know where he is.
She hasn't come home.
Well, when did you last see your wife?
A new afternoon drama.
Your son needs you.
Should have trusted me.
Sorry, Mum.
Hi, son.
Pauline Quirk stars in a new week-long series, Missing. Starts Monday at 2:15 on BBC One.
You wait, and you wait.
Where were you last night?
You haven't been sleeping well. Then 3.
He'll never give me up. Need to slap.
Come along.
She's going to take him down. Take him down.
At once.
Oh, cracking the whippish.
What happened? Her heart stopped. We tried to get a meeting again.
Tell me what the problem is.
You're just not that kind of man.
We failed to. We started. We did everything we could.
You want drama? We'll give you drama. EastEnders, Holby City and Mistresses. Tonight from 7:30 on BBC One.
And it all kicks off in just half an hour as politician Peggy pounds the streets of Walford ready to strike a pose. EastEnders on BBC One, right after The One Show.